You're listening to the Sports on Tap High School Hockey Show featuring teams from the Greater Cleveland High School Hockey League. Here are your hosts, Rob Troutman, Josh Jeffy, Sean Duffy, and Ed Dick.
And welcome, everybody, to Sports on Tap. We're live from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. I'm your host, Rob Troutman. We have Josh, Jeffy, and Sean Duffy here along with me. Ed Dick is out on assignment tonight, guys.
Handling business out there.
And like Josh said in the intro, this is our high school hockey show featuring the Greater Cleveland High School Hockey League. And coming up on the show, we have Amherst hockey head coach Steve Morris joining us, and they are having an outstanding season in the White North Division. So we'll be talking to him coming up in the show. And, you know, guys, looking at the High School Hockey League, it's been a great season for some teams. And really, when you talk about this Amherst Steel team, we talked about how young this team is. And we're going to go over the whole entire league throughout the show. But, guys, how's everybody feeling tonight? You know, at 7:45, we have Steve Morris coming on. I mean, that's a good start to the show.
Pretty pumped. That's like our ninth coach we've talked to since we've started our high school hockey coverage. So
yeah, and it's fun to talk to coaches who, you know, had not so good of a season last year. They finished overall 11-7, league record of 3-7. But coming in and, like you mentioned, Rob, having a very good year so far on their league schedule. They're 6-1, so they're doing a very good job this year. As we are only a couple weeks away from the Barron Cup, the start of the Barron Cup. So
very true.
Now is the good time to be playing good hockey, and they are.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Rob.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things that, you know, we're coming into crunch time. We talk about this a lot when we do our football coverage, that the last 3 weeks it's all about positioning, and a lot of teams are making their last run to get into the playoffs. And, you know, we can't stress this enough. The Barron Cup is essentially the early rounds of a state playoff run for some of these teams. So you want to make a good impression. It is the playoffs. You want to make sure you're either securing your best seed possible or getting in altogether. And some teams are going to require to have that last-ditch effort to just get into Barron Cup and try and win. So it's definitely coming down to crunch time. A lot of these players and teams want to finish out on a good note, and they want to make it. I mean, that's got to be their first goal every year, is make Barron Cup and be in the top 8 of your league. So, but definitely interesting races as we look at the league overall.
Yeah, looking at the standings right now, obviously in the White North, Amherst leads the way at 6-1, but right behind them is Olmsted Falls, and it's funny when you look at Olmsted Falls, they're 6-1 as well, tied with Amherst. Each have 12 points in league play. Amherst is a team that their one loss came to the hands of the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs, and then looking at Olmsted Falls, they lost, and their only loss is to the Amherst Comets. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, if down the road they match up one more time. A great rivalry maybe starting there. Avon in the third spot at 4-4. They have 8 points. Bay is tied there 4-3 with 8 points as well with Avon. And then you have Parma Senior High School at number 5 at 1-6. They have 2 points. And then Westlake at 0-6. Rounding out the North. Now in the White South, you have Orange at 7-0, and what a great job there. And we talked to you know, their head coach Brandon, who's up there, won 7 games in a row, 14 points for them. He talked about his team, the Orange Lions, having a great season so far. And what he's done with that program has been sensational so far this year. Canfield at number 2, they're 5-3 with 10 points, and Benedictine ties them with 5-3 record and 10 points. Then NDCL, who made Barron Cup and was really successful last year, 3-3. They have 6 points, and they're going to have to start getting some wins. Chagrin Falls at the number 5 spot at 2-6. They have 4 points, and then Brecksville at 0-7. Rounds out the South Division in the White League there. So, you know, there's still time to really make a run towards the Barron Cup. Obviously, you know, you look at Amherst, who's won 6 in a row, and Orange, who's won 7 in a row. Those teams just continue to win games. And the consistency level, you know, how are these teams going to get consistent as you head towards the Barron Cup? If you just really want to make it. That's the huge thing, and it could come down to the last game of the season.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that goes for any tournament that you're involved in. You want to establish good habits during league play during the season that would be really take over then into when you get into tournament play, and that's going to be the key. Which team, which one of these teams, maybe not like an Amherst or an Orange who are at the top, or Olmsted Falls at the top of the league standings, but which team that's in the middle of the standings that make the Barron Cup actually start playing hot at the end of the season here, and that could propel them in the Barron Cup. So it's going to be real interesting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the especially the White South Division. You know, a lot of teams, Benedictine and NDCL and even Chagrin Falls, could conceivably make their way into the Barron Cup. I mean, there's a lot of parity in that part of the league, but you also see a team like Canfield, who's just kind of really solidly in second place. I know they're tied at 5-3 with Benedictine, so those two teams, I think, can really be a team that can make teams that can make noise against maybe a higher seed or advance into a round and be a real problem for teams like an Amherst or an Olmsted Falls at the top or Orange. I mean, you got to remember these teams have played each other a lot, so there's not a lot to hide. And you know, one of the things that every coach tells you is it's hard to beat a team twice or three times in a season, and you know, especially there's no hiding anything here from these coaches and from these players. They've seen it all, and they've seen everything these teams have to offer. So it's definitely going to be something to look at as this season kind of wraps up and we head into a Barron Cup, especially seeding wise. You know, obviously the goal is to be number one, but you got to watch your matchup there because you could be playing a 4 team that's ready to pounce or is on a hot streak that gets in, and that sometimes catches teams off guard. But again, it's going to come down to solid fundamentals and defense, especially in tournament time, because you only have one shot at it. It's a single elimination tournament. So once you're done, you're done. You lose and you're done. You win, you move on. So that's just the way the nature of this particular tournament goes.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at, we're going to be talking to head coach of the Amherst Steel Comets, Steve Morris, coming up here in about 8 minutes. You know, this is their second year back in the league, because I remember, you know, there were a few teams that dropped out, just maybe not getting enough players to come out for the team. And then eventually, you know, you try to get enough players to support a team, and, you know, you can get back in the league. And that's exactly what they did. And in their second year back, I mean, to have the record they have now, and they're a young team. You know, I'm interested to see what he says about some of his young players that have really stepped up for the season with Jacob Kramer. He's a sophomore that's having a really solid year, or Zach Bozel, who's their sophomore goaltender. What a great job they've done overall with bringing along these kids to play at, I think, a different speed than maybe what they're used to normally, because I think this league is a little bit quicker depending on which league you're in, you know, or division. So it's tough to really get back at, especially when you're only been in the league now 2 years and you're trying to get more and more players, to get new players to come. And if you have seniors that left last year, which they have 6 newcomers, which I think is unbelievable. Really, it's impressive to have 6 newcomers on the team. They lost 3 from last year. So we'll be excited to talk to him here shortly.
You know, one of the things he's got to be happy with is the fact that 3 of the top 5 scorers in the White League are from Amherst. I mean, you're seeing, like you mentioned, Jacob Kramer, but Michael Giannuzzi and Jacob Facchetti, if I'm messing that name up completely, but you know, those are your top 3 scorers, and they all come from the same team. So that, number one, that means the puck's being distributed well, they're playing well, and on top of that, they're just scoring and scoring and scoring, and that's the name of the game in hockey, is to put the puck in the net, and they're doing a great job of it. I mean, they're leading the league in goals and points, so it's definitely something to hang your hat on, and especially when you're going into a playoff time, you want those players to be at, like Josh said, peaking at this. This is the time you want them being comfortable, being leaders out there, being able to, you know, not panic and not see, you know, a problem and shut down. And not to say that it's going to happen anywhere else, but it's hard to argue with the success that Amherst has had when 3 of the top 5 scorers in the White League are on your team. And you know what I mean? That's saying something for how much they're attacking the net, but also distributing the puck as well.
Well, and when you look at the website, it does say your league may handle tiebreakers differently. So I'm interested to understand in this white North and South division what the tiebreakers could be, because that could be a little bit of difference in the seedings when it comes to Amherst and Olmsted Falls, or Orange right now is still undefeated, so they would have the number 1 spot. But if it comes to tiebreakers, who would get the number 2 seed or the number 3? You just sometimes that does matter. We have a special guest who comes to us on the RRT Productions hotline, and
sponsored by Z's Cream and Bean.
Yeah, we'll give all of our sponsors a shout out.
Yeah.
But he is head coach of the Amherst Steel Comets. Steve Morris is joining us. And Steve, thanks for joining us tonight.
Oh, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Steve, you've been back in your second season here at Amherst. But before we get into your season, can you tell us a little bit about your hockey experience and how you kind of got involved with hockey starting off?
I'm originally from Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
So obviously that ties into hockey. I played hockey for a long time. I think I started when I was 5 years old, like most kids in Canada. So I did that, and then played through minor hockey there, played junior hockey in Toronto, the Toronto area, and then ended up going to Miami University, or Miami of Ohio, and played 4 years there, Division I hockey there.
Wow, a lot of experience. And yeah, that's impressive. Now, when you're born in Canada, when you're born, do they put a stick in your hand immediately? Like sometimes when you're at Ohio State, they put an Ohio State blanket on you and stuff. Is that what they do in Canada? They give you a hockey stick?
Pretty close. If they don't do it then, it's not much longer after that. You're out with one, and playing in the streets at least really, really quick. So, yeah, I don't know if it starts from the first day you're born, but there's maybe months, maybe a year or so before you finally do get one.
Well, welcome. It's impressive to have you on the show today, and appreciate your time. Now, talking a little bit about this Amherst team. Now, it's interesting, like we said, that Amherst didn't have enough players, I believe, to field a team at one point. So they didn't have a team. And then you had enough players. This is your second season. And talk about what it's been like so far this season for you, and, kind of the bumps you went through last season.
It's interesting, because we had a team for 10 years, and then it went away. I think our last season was like 2012, 2013, and then came back. And we didn't know, how many guys we were going to have. We knew down the road that there was going to be, 3 or 4 at every age group. So they went out, and we ended up, I believe, having, I think it was 10 kids, maybe 9 last year, including one goalie. So we just grabbed whoever we wanted or could, and some of the kids could skate, some couldn't. Some had played, for 10 years. Some had only played for 3 or 4. So it was an interesting season last year.
Coach, looking at your team statistics this year, one of the things that strikes me is that when you look at the White League overall, 3 of the top 5 scorers in that league come off of your squad. Can you talk a little bit about those 3 players and how they've kind of, really kind of spearheaded the scoring surge that seems to be surrounding your team?
Yeah, our scoring leaders are made up of a 10th grader, Jacob Kramer, and then 11th grader, Jacob Feckerty, and then 11th grader, Michael Januzzi. Michael's new to us this year. He wasn't with us last year. So those 3 guys up front lead the way, and then on the backside we have Tyler Waldecki, who's a defenseman who's pretty offensive minded, and he's an 11th grader. So yeah, it's pretty front end loaded point wise, in that when we have another freshman that's doing pretty well too.
Coach, talk about you only have 1 senior currently on the squad. Talk about how the youth of your team has really led to maybe some challenges in the beginning of the season, and maybe even now, with the success. How have they grown in a short amount of time together as a young team?
Yeah, that's interesting and challenging, right? You have to get them all to buy in, and I think last year the core of the guys that were there started to buy in towards the middle or the end, and then once they really buy into your system or your thought process and everything, life gets a little easier. But when you're dealing with high school players, I don't know if you ever can get them totally to buy in. There's many days when you just go, really, where did that come from? And you're like, I never showed you that. Where'd that come from? And it's like, I'm not sure. So, but we've been lucky that they've all bought into what we're trying to preach of just basically working hard and getting better every day, and it's sort of pushed our success along, I think.
Now, you talked about new player Michael Januzzi on your team. He's a junior. Did he have a lot of experience before coming on the team? I mean, he's playing a pretty big role this year, and he seems to almost be on the team seamlessly.
Yeah, no, he's been a great addition for us. I believe he played for the Barons last year.
Okay.
Played club hockey last year. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's where he came from. So he's played a lot. So he's a big body that's come in and works and bought into the system and just works every shift and every practice. It's been a great addition to the team.
Now, talk a little bit about the White North division here, because it looks like we see a little bit of a rivalry brewing with the Amherst Steel Comets and the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. You each have one loss in league play, and you beat them one game, and they beat you one game. Is there a rivalry brewing a little bit there for this season?
Yeah, I think that's been there. I think both programs have been at the same level for a while. Even the last couple of years when we were going back in 2011, 2012, it seemed that we bumped into Olmsted Falls a lot, whether it was during the league play or playoffs, or we belong to, in football and all that, we belong to the Southwest Conference, and they're in that too. So we ran into them in the Southwest Conference championship game here a week or so ago over Martin Luther King. So, yeah, it seems like for some reason we always end up playing each other.
Yeah, it looks like so far this year it's been fun to really see some of your team wins. I mean, a lot of scoring, and really in your league, you look at it, you have 4 teams from the Southwestern Conference in the league, and then you bring a Bay team there that isn't too far away, and Parma Senior High. So you have some really good teams in the north, and then you look to the south. What a season Orange has had! They're undefeated in league play. Right now. Then you have Canfield, Benedictine, NDCL, Chagrin Falls, and Brecksville. Some really strong teams overall in the league. What's your opinion on the White League right now?
I think it's very very competitive, very balanced. Even last year, it came down to us. We missed the playoffs last year, but we had a chance if we had beaten Bay in the last regular season game to get in. And this year, I think they're pretty balanced. There might be 1 or 2 teams that are struggling a little bit, but I think overall, whether it's north or south, we've seen a couple teams on the other side. We get actually Canfield. We're going to play them in a non-conference game this weekend coming up. And just from looking at their scores and looking at our side, our scores, I think it's pretty even.
Coach, we talked about, last year was a little bit of a struggle for you. Didn't make the playoffs, but this year you're well on your way. Just talk about some of the things that your team has really improved on to make this year successful for you and your team.
I think knowing what we're trying to do, add Michael Januzzi, we added a 9th grader also in Nathan Harmich has done well, and I think our goaltending's improved a lot. So our defensive end of it has got, the offense always, the forwards always get the credit from seeing all the goals and everything, but I really think our defense, we got a 10th grader that plays a lot, in Alex Dodrell and Tyler Wagdecki back there, and I think our goaltending has really improved a lot, and you do that, it makes life a lot easier.
Yeah, and your goaltender, only a sophomore. Talk about his play throughout the year. I mean, how have you kept his confidence level, being positive, especially if he gives up a goal, he's younger, so the confidence level might go down a little bit. Just to keep him involved in the game and keep his confidence up high. How has that gone so far this season?
Yeah, we actually have a ninth grader in Brady and 10th grader in Zach, and
Yep.
we actually pretty much split them down the middle.
Okay.
Just alternated back and forth. Like I said, our defense has been pretty good in the sense that we haven't given up a lot of shots, so that helps on one end, and then on the other hand, as a goalie, as you know, if you're not in the game and you're not getting a lot of shots, sometimes it's harder to come up with that big save. But so far, it seemed like both goalies have done a good job of staying focused and then coming up with the save when we need it. And you sometimes you got to be lucky, and that really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be lucky at some point. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, that's a good thing.
Hey, Coach, one question I have is, we're coming towards the end of league play. We're setting up for a really, really good Barron Cup, especially for the White League here. One of the things I always ask coaches, especially around this time when a team is, doing well, how hard is it or how easy is it to keep them focused on the task at hand, given all the success they are having? Do you find that, little setbacks are kind of harder to get over for teams that are on a roll like yours?
Yeah, I think that's a big concern. Whether you peak too early, whether you've worked too hard, played too many games, it's always concerning as you come into this level and this time of year. But then I always try and preach to them that one of the reasons you play in the game is to play in big games, exciting games where they mean something at this level. So I think what happens is the last couple of weeks, maybe we've been a little sluggish, and a little more so than we like to be. But hopefully we can build it up here over the next 7 to 10 days and start the legs going again.
Yeah, and looking at your schedule a little bit, you play Westlake tomorrow, I believe, and you played Bay today at 3:30, and then you have Canfield coming up this weekend. How's your schedule look for you? Westlake, doesn't have a win on the season, but it's pretty easy just to look past them, and the players probably say, "Oh, you know what? They don't have a win, so this should be an easy one." To focus really, like Sean said, at the task at hand and play a Westlake team and continue to win some games here. It can feel a very good team, and you have some really tough matchups coming up too.
Yeah, Westlake, I think if you can get everybody to realize that you're not really playing against the opponent, you're trying to get better each time, I think you can overcome that. But it's a lot easier said than done sometimes. I think sometimes there's certain games, though, where a lot of your younger kids can get a lot more ice time, and hopefully that helps your program a year or two down the road. So you're trying to make it focused that way and make sure everybody's buying into that. Not only is today good, but hopefully if we work hard a year from now and 2 years from now, it's going to help us. So, and in Canfield, it's going to be fun to go see Canfield. We haven't seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be good. So will give us an idea of the other side over there. I have not seen Orange play either, other than I know they're playing extremely well, and they got some seniors and juniors that can definitely put the puck in the net. So I think heading into the Barron Cup, our goal is to try and get into the Barron Cup, and I think once you get there, I really believe 1 through 4 on both sides can get on a roll and get good goaltending, and then you never know what happens. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's been fun to see your team be so successful this year. Coach, do you have any last thoughts for the listeners out there about your team or your program? I know you have a website too, and you guys at Amherst do a great job on social media with your team, where they can see, the team stats, or they can see the scores. I know on Twitter with your hockey team.
I'm not going to take any credit for that. I try to stay as far away from that stuff, other than to try and control a little bit of what goes on it.
Yeah.
But I try and do my best to stay away from that. But no, we're just looking. Hopefully, with success, hopefully there's more kids that want to come out and play hockey, who maybe played and gave it up a couple years ago. We just like to try and get everybody involved and try and get players that are doing it now try to make the school proud of what we're trying to do. So it's an open invite to anybody in Amherst. We'd love them to come out and be part of the program.
Well, you're doing a great job, Coach. We wish you nothing but the best of luck,
absolutely.
and I'm sure you'll have plenty of players coming out after a great season that you're having so far this year. Thanks for taking time to talk to us here tonight.
Hey, I really appreciate the call. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Coach. All right, that's head coach of the Amherst Comets high school hockey team, Steve Morris, joining us, and I want to thank him for joining us. Just an overall great job on the season, and continued success on the year.
Coach Morris kind of hit it right there in the head. Is that when you play a team that maybe is not as good or as talented as you are, you're absolutely right, Rob. One of the tough things to do is probably focus on the task at hand of winning that game. But he's right. There's other ways to look at it. We need to get better. I need my younger skaters to come off and get some varsity level ice time so that they understand what it's like. And you know what? Not taking nothing away from Westlake. And I know that's been a tough league year for them. They haven't notched a win, but it surely doesn't mean that they're not going to go out there and give it their best. So, good luck to Coach Morris there and his team, because I would personally love to see an Amherst Olmsted Falls maybe semifinal.
That would be fun to watch, yeah.
And Barron Cup too, just to kind of see that rivalry kind of come to a head. Because he's right; those teams have been on the same level almost every year, and they kind of run into each other, and usually that's a pretty good game. So
yeah, we had a chance, covering football, to talk to the athletic director Casey Wolf. And he told us about the hockey team, and I know he was pretty excited.
He was
about
jazzed
this.
up when we talked to him.
Oh, yeah, about this Amherst hockey team. And
we were covering the football game. He's like, hey, let's talk hockey. And we're like, okay.
Yeah, we will.
Don't worry. We'll get there. Football game going on over here. But
yeah. Hey, when you're excited about hockey, especially Coach Morris, being born in Canada, I mean, you always – that's just, a thing in Canada with hockey, and it's big time there.
You like Tim Hortons, you like hockey, and you drink Canadian beer. That's what happens.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
All by the age of 5. I know.
I mean, that's impressive.
We don't condone it.
I don't condone it, but that's a different
that's right.
country.
You got to be
a different
of
country.
age.
It's a different culture. I don't condone it. I'm just saying these are things I've heard.
Kidding.
But no, I want to thank Coach Morris for taking time to join us on the show tonight, especially with a busy schedule. They played at 3:30 today, and then they played 8:30 tomorrow. So we'll step away. What we're going to do is take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Red League when we come back. We talked about the white. We still have to talk about the blue as well.
That's right.
So we have a few more leagues to cover and talk about, tell you the standings.
A little bit of business left.
And keep you updated on all the information in those leagues getting ready for the Barron Cup as it approaches pretty quickly here, next few weeks. So keep up the good work. We're Sports on Tap. We will be right back.